What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Liam Griffin here from the MMA Opinion Podcast. I'm joined as always by Mr. Paul O'D.
How are things this week? We are going to be talking about COVID striking again, results from around the world, Forrest Griffin joining the IMMAF Athlete Commission, Blaine O'Driscoll getting his first bout for Brave FC, and 3 in the booth.
And Mr. David Doran also back in the house.
Pleasure to be here as always, lads. Thank you very much.
So there you go, lots to be getting on with. Let's be getting on.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck. I'm not surprised,
I'm cool with all the gods.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the MMA Opinion, and we will start off today with our news items. What have we got first, Paul?
So COVID is back in action and taking effect big time. We lost our co-main event last night, obviously due to COVID. I believe that was one of the cornermen. We didn't get full details on that, but it was announced last night also that we've lost our featherweight title fight from next weekend, and that Volkanovski has tested positive for COVID, which is a big concern considering he tested negative in New Zealand, when he landed. And there was actually another fight announced. I believe Andy Hickey sent it in to us that there was another fight cut from that card as well on 260 just today. So I'm just going to look that up. But,
sure. But as you say, it is concerning because he was negative in New Zealand, negative once he landed in Vegas, and then a few days later, suddenly he's positive. So that points to either he picked it up in the airport on the way, in either airport or on the plane, or this the one that you're worried about is, did he get it in the bubble?
Somewhere in that bubble, yeah. And if it's in the bubble, you worry for the whole card.
Yeah, which would be an absolute nightmare for a card like this, because it was shaping up to be a fantastic card. It still is a fantastic card, but just with a -1 title fight, unfortunately. Yeah, which I was quite looking forward to be honest. It was.
I don't give a fuck about Volkanovski. I don't care who he fights. I'll never watch him.
But I'm not disagreeing with you that I'm not fully on board with Volk being champ. But for him to stop being champ, he needs to be beat.
That's true.
If he's not going to face these guys, he's going to continue to be champion.
Well, he got beat by COVID, so.
Yeah, well.
So what do you have against Volkanovski?
I kind of felt that Max Holloway did enough to win definitely the second fight, if not the first fight. And then it's just a kind of a boring fight every time, just from a kind of a fight fan. Yeah. I don't have anything against the guy. The guy is cool, like he's lovely and everything like that, but I just don't get excited when I see his name on a poster.
Yeah.
And you're not on your own there. Look, Max is one of the most loved people in MMA.
Yeah.
So I think when you get a couple of bad decisions against him and keep what everyone perceives as his belt in his division, it's he's not going to be one of the fan favorites, let's just say.
And then to have Brian, who we saw against Holloway, and he got pieced up. To see him now to go to challenge Volkanovski, even though it's cancelled or whatever, but to see him go up and fight Volkanovski, I'd imagine that would leave a sour taste in some people's mouths.
Yeah, well, look, Brian earned it. Whoever was champion, Brian had earned it at this point. But again, this calls into question, when does Holloway get another shot? How far down the line? But best case scenario, he gets back on his feet in 2 or 3 weeks' time. They're not going to put the featherweight title on the line in a fight night event. Just not going to happen. It's not going to happen at 261 because there's already 3 titles on that card. So realistically, the first date that is open and possible is that 262 card where you have Charlie Olives versus Michael Chandler in the main event. So it could be on that card, but that's in May. If you're going any further than that, you're looking at the summer. Does Volkanovski go back to New Zealand? Have to do the 6 to 8 week quarantine or however long it takes, possibly no training during that time. When would he be ready by the time he gets home? That's after he recovers from COVID, of course. So this could be a drawn out period until midway through the summer, and that's kicking Holloway down the line and all the other contenders, Zabit, Magomed, Sharapov, they're all getting kicked down the line as well further, so it really damages the division.
It's stalling the division completely over one man who got a test result like that.
And the other fight there was Young and Morales is being pulled from that, and there's another, and of course there's a New Zealand interest there as well, and there's another there's another New Zealand guy on the card as well. Jamie Malarkey is supposed to be fighting Cama Worthy on the main card. I imagine, with my little crystal ball, that one will get pulled as well.
That's a serious prediction. The whole thing going to fall apart, you reckon?
Well, no, like the two New Zealand guys have come down with COVID.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
So if there's another New Zealand guy, like you said, perhaps they caught it on the plane, perhaps it was at the airport, somewhere along the line that when they landed in the bubble, it hadn't shown up yet. If that's the case, you'd imagine Jamie Malarkey's in the same boat here. And realistically, either him or one of his cornermen or something, unless they were on completely different flights, we don't know, but that they're... Look, I just imagine that one will likely get the bullet as well.
No, so we have a live event coming up soon in Florida in front of a crowd, don't we?
Yeah.
So I saw that earlier today, and now I don't know how much this may affect it, but there was a state of emergency declared in Florida over spring break. And I'm just looking up here that Miami beach officers shoot pepper balls into spring break crowd.
But that's just regular spring break, right? They do that every year. That's part of the party.
But
we're the cops in assless chaps.
I would hope so. I would hope so. Boofing pepper balls, but but so like you see this kind of stuff getting out of you see this stuff going on now. Does that worry you for the upcoming UFC cards, or do you believe that they're two different animals altogether?
What's happening on 260 worries me more for the upcoming card
with the cancellations.
Yeah. It like the trend had slowly gone away, and we were seeing less and less fighters fall out due to COVID. There were still fighters coming off cards, weight cutting issues as we saw,
injuries or whatever it was,
injuries, etc. There was still cards being pulled. But when this started, there was one or two, if not three fighters every week with some COVID related issues where the fights were being pulled, and that had really died down, and it was plateauing at one a month or one every 2 or 3 cards. And now we've had one this week, we have 2 next week already, and a worry about that full card, to be perfectly honest. It might just be me, but I'm genuinely worried about that card right now. If it's in the bubble, it's a concern.
Yeah, not just for the fight card, but for the organisation.
The staff, everyone around the event. This is a pay-per-view event. I imagine it's all the same people that will be looking after UFC 261.
Yeah.
So I think if this one goes off smoothly and they don't lose any more fights, I think 261 is still a roaring success. But if this one falls apart the way it very well could right at the moment, 261 is a concern for me. Yeah,
knock on wood.
Touching wood.
Yeah,
ruining 100%. The audio for the podcast, but yeah, I appreciate that.
Come here, his voice ruins the audio for the podcast.
Excuse me. Well, listen, never mind pixelating me. We should pixelate that, whatever that is.
Yeah, when you first brought up the camera there, I forgot that I was slouched back in the chair and I looked like a beach whale. I sat forward really quickly.
What's the next news item on the list there, Paul?
So results from around the world over the weekend. There was some lot of MMA on this weekend.
This is part of the reason why Paul is so cranky today, is because he's after watching everything this week.
I haven't slept for 3 days. Yeah, it's just I've been non-stop. So we had the Cage Warriors trilogy, some phenomenal fights. You had some big Irish interest there. Like, obviously we're all Irish based, and I know a lot of our fans there. Paul Hughes had a huge win. And interestingly enough, and that was on 120, on 122, Vucenic picked up the title against Morgan Charrier, which is huge for Hughes, considering that's the only guy he's lost to, and the rematch looks like it's on and for the title this time. Other than that, and obviously the title switch hands there, Morgan Charrier is one of the biggest names in MMA that's not fighting in one of the top organizations right now. The guy, I think, on Twitter has something like 150,000 followers. He's just a huge name in France and an entertaining guy. He comes out in a mask, so it's damaging loss for him. In the other 2 cards, you had that was Sylvester Miller. Yeah, so
Cartwright was actually behind on the cards, or
yeah, he was losing the fight.
Okay,
and Miller kept, as he was coming down with hammer fists, coming down with his whole body.
Yeah,
because he was keeping a really tight pressure game from the top position.
Yep.
and to generate that power into short hammer fists, he was kind of moving the whole top half of his body down, but kept making the same mistake and connecting with his head. The ref, for me, did a fantastic job, and I see there was differing opinions online, but for me, he did a fantastic job in that he gave him a warning on the first one, a stern warning on the second one, took a point on the third, said he'd DQ him if it happened again, but there was a language barrier there. Now, he did, every time went over to his corner and they translated. The fourth one again, he took another point and said, look, under no circumstances does this happen again. Of course, it happened the fifth time, and it ended up in a DQ, but really controversial fight, the way it played out. But Sylvester Miller looked good and was one of the bigger underdogs on the card. And in the other title fight, you had Sardari on the Friday night as well, defend his title against Donovan Desme in a phenomenal fight as well. But there was some great performances on the card. Ian Gary had a massive performance.
Yeah, it was a big win.
Yeah,
Big
massive
win.
head kick KO. The guy, he just looks as legit as they come right now. Moving to 6-0 in his MMA career. Other Irish interest on the Saturday night, unfortunately, Darren Gorman, who was on the podcast with us, got put to sleep in the opening bout of that one against Nicholas LeBlanc. But there was some great fights all over the course of those 3 days. I'm not going to get too much into it. Yep. On Friday night as well, you had LFA 102. And the talent at the moment in LFA is phenomenal. Look, there's some fights on those cards always that are the guys gas out after a round or two, and they can become hard to watch. But
that's just typical on the regional circuit anyway.
Exactly.
You gotta
take the good with the bad.
Exactly.
But the last few cards, maybe the last 10 cards I've watched LFA, there's at least 3 or 4 guys on that you go, all right,
here we go.
We're going to keep an eye on this guy, it seems to be more and more every card.
Yep.
There was a Kazakh fighter on Friday night who I think looks like an absolute world beater at welterweight. Now, he's only 8-3, but he started out his career as 1-3.
Okay.
So he's on a 5-fight win streak since then, and he just looks like an absolute...
Probably after he got out of Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It literally was at
him. Wave. There's guys that are coming out.
Is anywhere near a title fight?
No. I mean, on merit right now, he doesn't deserve it. But if the title fight falls apart next week, they're not going to not have a title. At the moment, it's a 10-fight card. We're expecting
with his stickers all over his chest. They're happy.
Where do these Polish fighters get their Mexican supplements? Do they import them or do they?
I don't know, but the Serbian boy he fought last night was suspect. Every bit of suspect. He had the biggest belly I've ever seen in my life, but he had the most ripped pair of pecs.
Yeah, that's true.
The bubble gut.
Yeah. But he moved to 0-1 in MMA, and he got paid very handsomely, I'd imagine, for stepping in on short notice against Pudzianowski off a bar stool. So yes, that's from around the world.
Ben is just asking, do you think they have Leon on standby in case Jorge or Kamaru ends up dropping out?
See, that's a
he cuts a lot of weight, doesn't he? Doesn't Leon Edwards cut a lot of weight to get to welterweight?
And he's probably returned to the UK.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Generally, these will be, unless... So after this weekend coming, I imagine the UFC are probably going to put something in place for almost every title fight going forward, because they don't want to be risky it anymore. So they'll have a contender in there, like they had Glover for the light heavyweight one at 258. And it's circumstantial with a lot of these, who's available and who's easy to get to the location. But I imagine they put measures in place that are going to have a guy for every title fight. Edwards might be the guy, because that's still a month away. You wouldn't know. But then again, making someone available, you're going to have to pay them to make the weight and not fight.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
But I mean,
a tricky one.
Leon Edwards is technically in the rankings. He's the next one up, even though there's a lot of talk over he should run it back with Bilal.
No.
He is ranked number 3. Gilbert Burns, I believe Usman already beat Burns, didn't he?
Yeah.
Recently enough. So like technically he is the man. Edwards is the man. It's a question.
Still think Wonderboy should be ahead of him, but
yeah.
Just talking about dropping in and out there, guys. I'm not sure whether the live stream is dropping in and out. So anybody who's watching live, can you give us a thumbs up if we are actually still streaming properly? I think we are, but I'm not 100%. So just give us a thumbs up or a kind of a status update there. What's the next news item there, Paul?
Forrest Griffin joining the IMMAF Athlete Commission, which is a huge coup for IMMAF.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, so just to kind of fill in anybody who's not familiar with IMMAF. IMMAF is the amateur world body for MMA. So it's the International MMA Federation, and their kind of remit is basically to get the MMA to the Olympics, and it's a massive project, a political project, as much as it is a kind of a sporting developmental project. It's a hugely important political project that includes going to these conferences all over the world and kind of cozying up to other sports, getting officially recognized by WADA, getting officially recognized by the Sport Accord, dealing with rival associations, whether that be within MMA or outside of MMA. It's a huge thing, and IMMAF are the body that do this, and they do a phenomenal job. They run the World Championships and regional championships every year. They've just in the last couple of years added the youth program, which means that kids from age 12 upwards are now fighting in MMA at a very, very high level, and just all across the board they're improving the sport. They've always and continue to be supported by UFC primarily. It's one of their major sponsors, and you will see the IMMAF used to have the championships broadcast on Fight Pass. They don't do that anymore because they have their own platform now for that. But every so often you will see some support coming across from UFC to the IMMAF, including their anti-doping board is made up with one of the people who are on the USADA board as well. Yeah. So there's always a crossover, and this is the latest thing now is the Athlete Commission. So the whole point of the Athlete Commission is currently active or retired athletes are kind of like a union that just make sure that the athletes are being looked after by the organization, and who better than Forrest Griffin? I mean, I don't even think they're. I'd be hard pressed to come up with a list of names of guys who are more qualified for this than Forrest Griffin, and such a phenomenal personality, and somebody that all the athletes look up to as well. And he's involved in the Performance Institute. You know, this is just great news for amateur sports. It's great news for MMA in general, and we should all be very, very happy about this.
So tell me, what does Forrest Griffin, obviously I know he's on the Athlete Commission, but even just in an ambassador role for IMMAF, like someone of his stature, and that's that heavily steeped in MMA and has such a big profile, what does someone of his stature do in an ambassador role for IMMAF to get it recognized?
Well, I think he certainly brings the hardcore MMA fans to the IMMAF table, because like even amongst hardcore, we say kind of podcasts and MMA media outlets, I very rarely hear the IMMAF being mentioned. But if you have the likes of Forrest Griffin, who just he's on a podcast and he's just come back from, we say, the Pan Ams, and he's like, oh, you got to watch out for these athletes here. I saw this guy here and he did a suplex and yada yada. And maybe like he's the kind of guy that's going to end up on a Joe Rogan podcast again at some point. I don't think Joe Rogan has ever mentioned IMMAF.
I don't think so, no.
So, do you know, like as bigger personalities are steeped in IMMAF, I think that benefits that organization becoming more mainstream. And do you know what? It is the future of the sport. I know I'm completely biased because like I'm kind of involved in going to these championships all the time. But the more time goes on, the more we're seeing former IMMAF medalists making their way into the larger organizations like Bellator and UFC. And I predict in a couple of years' time, maybe 2 or 3 years' time, that it's going to be almost going to be a harder road not to have gone that way, because the level coming through IMMAF is just so high.
It's almost like an apprenticeship for fighting.
It's a huge apprenticeship for fighting, and we talk about it all the time when it comes to dealing with Russian wrestlers at the moment. Dagestani wrestlers and Chechnyan wrestlers, they have their own kind of unique style of wrestling that's hugely it's hugely problematic for anybody in Europe or even the Americans who have a very strong wrestling background, and if you're an athlete who's becoming a pro athlete and going to the UFC and these things, you don't get the chance to fight a Dagestani wrestler
until you get there.
In LFA or in Cage Warriors or in in EFA or any of these other organizations. So you have to wait till you get to the UFC before you have your first experience of fight a Dagestani fighter. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You want to be. You need to be feeling that when you're an amateur. You need to be. You need to be held down by some guy called Magomedov, and some other dude called Petrov in the corner shouting at him.
Pyotr Petrov.
I mean, they're both called Magomed of some description anyway.
Some description. But until you feel that, you don't know how to train for it. And, we've seen it time and time again, how many guys come up against a Dagestani wrestler in the UFC, get absolutely smoked, and then we never hear about them again.
Yeah.
And there's another thing as well. It was what I was speaking to Paul just before the podcast, but there is with the IMMAFs as well, I do believe it is a great platform there to build up a properly representative public image and perception of MMA as well, because I do believe that there's a division down MMA, I believe, and there's the people who are kind of on board with the IMMAF. Now this is not a concrete thing, but there are people who are on board with the IMMAF stuff and go down it, approach it from that vein, that route. And then there are people who are kind of like the old guard, who kind of the Just Bleed crowd, who don't really take this into account. So I do believe like IMMAF is doing fantastic work for public perception of MMA, but not only the public perception, but the actual, the nuts and bolts of MMA as a sport. And like I believe we should and we will, and I'd be 100% up for going through the different things that IMMAF does, and that how we can take MMA from what it is, a fledgling sport at the end of the day, in terms of looking at other sports across the world, but taking it from there into a well regulated, very safe as much as you can, because you can only make something as safe as you can. There's you can't go 100% on anything, so like that kind of work is fantastic, and to have Forrest Griffin on board is amazing as well. So I would love at a later date to go into some of that kind of stuff on the podcast and on the show.
He might come on as a guest.
You never know.
Yeah. So I just got a message from one of the lads there. I believe we are being cut in and out of our broadcast. So look, what we might do is we're going to continue on with the hour anyway, and if needs be, we're recording it so we can pop it up a cleaner version later. And we do apologise if we're dropping in and out.
Yeah, I don't know why that is, but we'll come to the end of it. We'll get to the bottom of it another time.
Yeah.
But let's. Have we any more news items, or are we on to the card?
Just quickly on that, Blaine O'Driscoll had his fight announced, and it's a huge one in his debut for Braves FC. He's fighting Jose Shorty Torres, and you were saying a win here could get him straight to the UFC.
I believe so. Jose Torres is another IMMAF former 2-time world champion, I believe, and he's a huge celebrity in the world of IMMAF, but also in the world of Brave, because Brave has always been linked with IMMAF as well. The Bahrain has been the host of the IMMAF World Championships the last 3 years in a row.
And the Prince of Bahrain is heavily involved in both.
He's heavily involved. And Shorty Torres was a commentator on a lot of the IMMAF broadcasts, and as well as being a commentator on some of the Brave broadcasts.
Yeah.
So this is a huge celebrity over in that part of the world. He's well known in the States as well.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of hype behind him, and he's tipped to be in the UFC pretty shortly. A win for Blaine here, he just frog leaps to him. And I reckon one win in Brave gets Blaine, could possibly get Blaine to the UFC, and I think this could be it.
Yeah, very easily. Like Torres is considered to be probably the top flyweight not signed to a major promotion worldwide at the moment. So a huge fight. And the other one we wanted to touch on was the 3 in the booth, and it's just going back to, I was talking about different events. Cage Warriors had 3 commentators in the booth, so did LFA, and it's kind of like they're taking the lead from the bigger organizations who seem to be leaning that way at the moment. Now, I actually didn't mind the three last night. Brendan Fitzgerald, Michael Bisping, and Paul Felder. I think they did an okay job, but I've had issues with Bisping in the previous two events, but he did quite well last night. But the two teams that were on LFA and Cage Warriors were phenomenal. And a big shout out to Dan Hardy, who returned to commentating. He joined Brad Wharton and Daniel Strauss on the Cage Warriors team.
Yep, they were very good.
And another one is Laura Sanko to watch out for. She was with the LFA team with Rafael Levada Jr. and Ron Kruk.
Yep.
And she was phenomenal throughout that card. So I imagine she'll get her chance in the UFC quite soon as well.
Awesome.
Yep.
So there we go. We better get stuck into the actual card itself. Seeing as though we're half an hour in and we haven't talking about a fight yet.
Quality news items.
Often the news items are the highlight of our show, Dave.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
Especially if it's a shit card that we're facing. we try and make them last as long as possible. But saying that wasn't a bad card last night.
It wasn't a bad card. No, I enjoyed it. I didn't watch it all live, but I watched it back afterwards.
I need to get your opinions on Kevin Holland. Just right out the bat.
Yeah.
Everything. Performance and everything outside of it. The whole coverage. I just want your opinion on Kevin Holland as it stands right now.
What was the story with after the fight? So Kevin Holland was kind of talking. Dana White said he had a mental breakdown.
Yeah, well, look, that's
I missed that completely. What happened there? When was that?
That was last night. He was
like a mental breakdown in the fight.
Yeah,
is that what he's putting? That wasn't a mental breakdown. That was just Kevin Holland being Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
It's Dana White is having a mental breakdown if he thinks that's what happened.
Yeah. And we're going to touch on something there in a second, but I just want to get your opinion on this first.
So I think, look, this is Kevin Holland being Kevin Holland. He's just a messer, but he's also carved out a little bit of a technique in using his talking to distract his opponents. I mean, like that knockout against Jacare came off of one of those trash talking moments where Jacare hit him with I think he hit him with an elbow or hit him with a right hand from inside.
It was
the
like a shot to the body.
Yeah, and he said, "That was nice, Jack. That was nice."
And Jacare
that was nice too, Jack.
To him.
And it disarmed Jacare as well. Did you see he kind of just lost focus for a second?
Yeah. Exactly. Then he popped him with 3 shots in a row, knocked him out, and then suddenly he's ahead of him on the rankings.
From the ground, from the ground. Yeah.
So I think it's a tactic. I think he also realizes that he needs to cheat if that's what trash talking
play
in the
games.
Middle. He needs to do that because he wasn't going to beat Derek Brunson by becoming serious. Like he hadn't. There was a lack of skill set there, and he this is his way of stepping outside the box to try and stack the chips back in his own favor. So I find it hilarious.
Yeah.
It's extremely entertaining. I want them to mic him.
Yeah, that
stick a mic in his jocks or something like that. Or put a boom mic just over them in the cage. I want to hear everything he says because it's hilarious. But I know you have another take on it, Paul.
Yeah, so look, it's all right. The talking in the cage. If you lose the fight, you look like a twat, and that's the end of the story. I get that it's a tactic, but you're going to look like a twat if you lose the fight. But I'm okay with that. That's his game plan. Whatever. There's other little details within the whole programming last night that caught my attention that made him look like an even bigger twat. He had the opportunity and he was given the spotlight heading into this first big main event, let's say, and they did like home movies. And when these guys get these opportunities, it's them in their gyms and them showing off whatever. Kevin Holland took them into his cupboard to show off his shoe collection and brag about when he had $600 heading into his first fight in 2020 left in his bank account. He spent it on a pair of shoes. Stuff like that. And then the disrespect, I believe it was disrespect. He showed his cornermen after the first and second round, not listening to them at all and just talking to Khabib. Things like that. Just for me, I look at you a little bit differently and go, all right, you need to fucking take it a little bit seriously. Mm-hmm. I'll get over the talking in the cage because, as you say, it's a tactic. And that there is an element of it, at least as a tactic, but there's an element of it as well that's just the person he is. But he needs to take it a bit more seriously. And there was aspects shown of him last night that shows that he doesn't take it that seriously.
I would agree. I would be in agreement with you, Paul, more or less. Like, you know, if you're talking in the cage and you lose, I don't think that makes you a twat. I think
It
that
definitely does.
no, it doesn't. If
I'm going to beat your ass. No, you're not.
if you keep talking after the fight has ended, do you know what I mean? If you keep talking, that's when you become a twat. You know, it's fair enough. It's all fair when you're inside the cage talking. You know, it's grand. But a small problem I do have is like with when too much arrogance and ego comes into it, and I think that may be part of it. I mean, like, all well and good being a tactic, but like, so is, you know, throwing salt or throwing sand in someone's eye. Do you know that kind of way? You know.
But the one thing I'll say about with ego in the fight is he was actually still able to, inside all of that and showing his humor, he was still able to show a tiny bit of humility in the fact that in between rounds he was saying, when he finally did listen to his cornerman, I believe it was after the 4th round, and they were saying, you got to do this, you got to do that, and he said, I'm trying. He was like, what am I supposed to do? And he was acknowledging the fact that he was outgunned. So there was a little bit of humility thrown in there, and I think the talking, like Liam says, is a bit more tactical in what he's saying than ego.
Yeah.
And I believe that it's just his personality that he wants to have fun in there and talk shit and do whatever. But there's aspects, for just my own opinion, outside of it, that he needs to fucking rein it back or dial it back or pay attention to the corner in between rounds. When you get your spotlight, highlight yourself well. Put yourself forward as an ambassador for your own community, for your gym, for whatever. Stuff like showing off his watch collection and shoe collection. And
is it a maturity thing, do you think? He still has a bit of growing up to do as a fighter? Outside of his fighting ability.
After that performance, he definitely has to grow up as a fighter.
I think it's just his humor.
Yeah.
But he did miss it. That is missing a trick. I mean, like we talk about it so many times here on the podcast, that when you do get that moment to shine, you got to have a call out ready, and you got to be ready to sell yourself to a wider audience. You're going to get a lot of messers that will like that kind of stuff, but it's a bit of a turn off for kind of serious MMA fans, I think.
And a perfect segue, because one person that used the mic better than anyone I've seen in a long time was Mr. Max Griffin.
Yeah, I missed the call out, so fill me in here.
So Max Griffin got the mic, obviously, after a big enough win against Song Kanan. Both guys unranked, and he decided to call out the number 12 ranked guy who's nobody wants to fight and is struggling to get fights. What's his name? Jeff Neal.
Okay.
And called him out in his hometown in Houston for a big upcoming card where there's going to be a crowd at.
Yep.
So you've got Neal's attention.
Yep.
A ranked guy that wants to take a fight against an unranked guy. You're selling yourself into the top 15 opportunity. Perfect. Best call that I've seen in a long time.
Awesome.
And the knockout itself wasn't too bad. Do you know? If you're going to, you know, I think he caught him perfectly. He caught him once, kind of put his lights out a small bit, and then sealed the deal with the second shot then again, and very nice.
For sure. And up until that point, it was anyone's fight, because Song looked sharp.
Yeah,
you know, he was landing quite well as well. You know, so that was like it was that one right hand that set him back on his heels, and then after that he wasn't fast enough to react to the next two.
I do think Song Kanan, he does, you know, he's another one to watch. I do think there's a bit of potential there that he can come up pretty well.
Definitely. And look, but there's so many guys at 170. A loss at this stage when you're just touching on the 15, it's a big setback, but put a couple of wins together, you can get back up there.
Yeah, 100%.
So the ladies were on next was Mansurat Ruiz and Cheyenne Baze. It's Baze,
Baze,
it's not Baze.
It's weird, because he's South African. That's where the name comes from.
Okay.
But, he just spells it wrong.
So this is an extremely frustrating fight to watch on behalf of Cheyenne. It was, I mean, you know, like when Cheyenne did get a chance to throw her hand, she looked freaking dangerous, and it looked like she was going to get the knockout. But all credit to Mansurat for specializing in such a technique that's usually not okay in MMA. It's usually not okay to do a headlock throw in MMA because it's so easy for the other opponent, the other person to take your back, just pop your head out.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this just before the podcast as well, and I think the fact that it's in the female division, I think the fact that the girls have the longer hair, and in a lot of cases they have the hair tied up in cornrows and kind of bunched together, I think it made it easier for Mansurat to hold on to that head. There was a lot more friction there. There was a lot more like in order to take your head through there. Yeah. Imagine a slippery bald head there. That she'd never have held it on. But what was most frustrating for me was Cheyenne was making every effort to escape, and that position in particular, it's a very, very dangerous position. So had Cheyenne unlocked her hands, she was getting armbarred or she was getting kimura'd or Americana'd. There's a series of finishes there. As soon as you unlock your hands, somebody that specializes in that position is going to ruin you.
Yeah.
And Cheyenne and her corner knew this, and they kept those hands clasped in a gable grip. Now, if you're going to keep your hands together, you need to have a kind of a trilogy of escapes. So there's a whole set of escapes there. One goes left, one goes right, one goes up, one, they all are, they're a system of escapes. So you attempt one, the person defends that escape, and it leaves them open for the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But Cheyenne only had the one direction. She kept going for the same escape, and when that didn't work, she didn't go back the other way. So as like from a coaching point of view, when I was watching that, I was screaming the escape at her, and I was like, all you got to do is this, and I'm definitely doing a video on it. I'm definitely doing a video on this one.
But it is worth noting that Cheyenne went into this with 6 pro fights. She's relatively green, and this fight, it was a new opponent on a week's notice.
Yeah.
So she hadn't done that much preparation for that move. But it's clear that in the last week she did some preparation on the move and was prepared and ready for that.
Yeah.
But like you say, it was only one escape that she worked on. She probably felt like, all right, this is the one. Yeah. I'm going to lock this down this week and get this, and that's what'll work. And unfortunately, it didn't work that way for her.
No, she did escape once, and it was a beautiful escape that she did use. She stepped over with her legs. She was trying to do that the whole time and wasn't kind of getting it. But when she did get it, she actually hipped in underneath Ruiz, almost like a shovel. She went in underneath her and took her weight back. It was perfect. Lovely execution of that escape. The other escape she was trying to do, she was trying to get to her knees and pop her head out. Both of those go in that direction, towards the other person. The one escape she didn't have was the one that went the other direction, and had she paired those together or put them in a system, she would have been out every single time.
It would have been a very different fight.
Mansurat would have realised you couldn't hold her in that position, so she wouldn't have gone for it anymore. I mean, 8 minutes of this fight was in the same position.
Yeah.
It was extremely frustrating to watch, and at the same time very impressive to watch Mansurat, who's a specialist in this position.
Yeah, 2 very impressive girls, by the way. They both clearly have a future in the UFC. And I know, look, you can judge the standard, the fact that they're both debutants, maybe that they need to be tested against someone who's been in there and had a few fights in the UFC. But I think both looked good.
I think you're right. I think they both showed, like, there's times there when you see kind of debutants coming in or kind of newer signees coming in, and you can just look at them and say they're never going to be champions. But these 2 girls both have something.
Yeah.
You know, Cheyenne Baze, like if she gets that escape kind of dialed in, her stand up looked amazing.
Yeah.
And then Mansurat, like that with being able to take down girls in that division who know that that's what she's going for. Cheyenne knew that that's the throw she was going for, and she still couldn't stop it. Yeah. Like we're talking kind of like Ronda Rousey type takedown there, where everybody knew Ronda Rousey was going to judo throw them and armbar them, and they still couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
That's what we have here in Mansurat Ruiz.
And it's one facet of her grappling game.
Yep.
And we haven't seen the whole game yet.
And Master Victor Davila in her corner. He's the guy that referees all the EBIs.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
cool.
So he's a 10 planet guy, so she undoubtedly has leg locks as well.
Yeah. She's definitely one to watch out for. I said it beforehand. The only reason I didn't pick her was the fact that it was a week's notice, and I was concerned what condition she'd be going in there, but she looked phenomenal.
I didn't pick her because I didn't know who the fuck she was.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that one as well.
It pays to do a bit of research, lads. Actually, no, wait, does it?
I don't know. You tell us. Are you behind on the picks?
Wait, are you guys getting paid?
Yeah,
So
no.
what else do we have? We have Adrian Yanez and Gustavo Lopez.
A phenomenal
in the
knockout
bantamweight
by
division.
Yanez. Yanez in boxing looks legit.
Yeah, absolutely.
The baby Masvidal.
Yeah. Himself and it was Masvidal and Anthony Pettis had a love child. It would be Adrian Yanez.
100%. That's the guy.
Did you see that meme? No.
No.
It was good. It was good. Yeah, his boxing was crisp,
Yup.
like super crisp. Like Lopez was a banger from the start, you know. But you could see by his face, like when he got cracked by a few from Yanez, like he was cautious from then on. His facial expression changed, and it was only a matter of time.
And it's one of those as well where you could tell that Lopez, after that first minute, wanted to get engage in some grappling, but the fear was so real that he didn't even want to get in close enough to clinch. Like he was literally, you could see it in his eyes. He was like, "I need to grab him, but I'm not going to."
He had one eye on the cage door.
Yeah. It was a little bit that scenario. But yeah, look, Yanez looks phenomenal. I see a big fight coming for him at 35 as well. Some massive competitors there.
And the last fight on the main card, Tai Tuivasa and Harry Hunsucker. We mentioned this a little bit earlier.
The fourth best heavyweight in Kentucky.
No. Oh yeah, sorry, he dropped to the fourth best heavyweight.
Is he down? No, Jesus.
He
He
was
was number one. I joked Friday saying 1 of 4.
One of
yeah.
4, yeah.
Do you know what? Taito Vassa actually gave me a scare because I said on the podcast last week, if this doesn't get done in under a minute, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But 49 seconds. Yeah, look, it's
it is what it is.
It was only going one way.
But you know what? Harry Hunsucker threw a
1-2.
Well, it was a leaping left followed by a right hand,
Yeah.
and it was
so
freaking close.
it was
And there was a lot of power on it as well. Like had he Tuivasa caught the left hook on the glove, and then the right hand went just whistling past his cheek, you know.
Yeah.
But like that right hand had been an inch to the right. I think that could have knocked Tuivasa out. It certainly would have wobbled him.
Because he circled away from that. The Tuivasa circled away from that, didn't he? When there was the attack coming, he kind of got out of the way and moved off, and then he came back in.
I don't know about that. Tuivasa's got one of them thick Maori skulls.
Yeah, that's true.
You'd
true.
want 3 fists landing that same punch
Yeah.
to knock him out.
That's true.
Someone from New Zealand now is going to have a problem with that.
Not at all. That they wear that with a badge of honor.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh man, his leg kicks were solid.
Yeah, and he
Like there's
opened
an
straight
extra.
up with it.
It's almost like there's an extra whip in his hips or something like that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's the regular leg kick with the big thick leg on him,
Yeah.
and then there's almost like nitrous oxide. There's a button in there, there's a booster in there. Just as he's about to land, his hips give an extra rotation.
But isn't there something to having the big belly? I don't know. 1 second. One second. There is something to it. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Roy Nelson with that overhand right. The belly momentum builds up as you're throwing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Angular velocity.
Does that work with the legs as well?
Possibly. Well,
I imagine it's weighing the leg down and slowing it down. No.
I don't know. I think it's more to do with the overhand right. It's the same effect as a trebuchet. Is that the right word?
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it's the same physics.
One swings and the other.
Yeah, so
the other one goes back.
it's the counter swing that adds to it. I'm not sure it might do. That's another video that we'll have to make.
A horizontal trebuchet.
I mean, I've got to be the model for that one.
Yeah, we'll put like motion tracking cameras on you and everything. We'll put loads of dots on you.
I mean, if you need a belly to swing around, I am your man.
Do you know those caps they put on lads when they're doing the thing? You should have one of them for your gun. Do you know what all the diodes on it?
Just test the momentum of it, yeah.
Test your center of gravity there and the turning force of angular momentum on Paul's gut.
The feature prelim, you had Macy Shiaz on in the bar. We've lost it completely now. I'm gonna crack on. They can take the piss out of my belly all they want. So you'd Macy Shiaz on, looked phenomenal against Marion Renault. And her boxing looked slick. She's moved up to number 9 in the world now, but that bantamweight division is catatonic. She could fight anyone in that top 5 except not named GDR or Holly Holm, and it'd be an interesting fight, and it doesn't get them any closer to a title. I know Juliana Pena is calling for that title shot, but it's just a hard sell outside of GDR and Holly Holm, and the fact that the featherweight division has gone out, they need some new blood in there real quick.
But there's no rush with her really. Like, she's 7-1. Give her another couple of years, you know. Let them build her up for a while, and you know.
Yeah, but she's just moved up to number 9 in the world.
Yeah.
And the 4 girls or 5 girls ahead of her are all girls that. So you have Sarah McMahon, you have Juliana Pena, Irene Aldana. Who else is calling for that shot? There's another girl there, but they're all girls that are looking for the title shot next. They obviously have to face off against each other. None of them want to fight Holly Holm or GDR because they know they get kicked back to the back of the queue again. It's just a tricky one. You have 3 girls that completely dominate that division. One more so than the other 2, obviously. It's hard to see who you'd match her up against to be an interesting match to get her to the title shot, unless it's a Holly Holm.
Yeah.
But that's a hard sell when she gets number 9 in the world. She's got to fight someone else up there, and they're mostly grapplers, which is a concern for her.
Who else did you see on the card that was a stander-outer?
There was a few. Grant Dawson had a good performance. I was very surprised by the Trevin Giles and Roman Delice fight.
Oh no, I didn't see that one.
Roman Delice dropped that. Roman Delice was 8-0 at light heavyweight. Looked like a killer. Looked like a stone cold killer at light heavyweight, and cut down to 85 and gassed out after a round.
Yeah, he looked like he was fighting underwater. And the two of them did, really, to be honest. The two of them did look like they were very, very tired. No, it wasn't a great fight. And Delice as well had like, if anybody has any experience in leg locks, he had a done and dusted, sealed victory
and
multiple times.
Never wrapped his arm around it and lead back. It was strange, like.
Yeah. Like, he had he had a regular heel hook, he had an inverted heel hook, he had the entanglement, he had everything he needed, and just couldn't finish it. So, like, I'm wondering, like, was it the fact that his arms were gassed out, or like, was he kind of a little bit disoriented? There was something just not quite right about him. Like, he just was, like, as you say, he was a shadow of himself. Like, it
could have been the shots he was taking while he was looking for the heel hooks. He got his bell rung several times when he was digging for them.
Yeah.
That could have played a factor. You don't know. He could have been just trying to find his bearings throughout that whole process.
And Trevin Giles as well, what didn't look like he was at all bothered by the leg locks. So it might have been the fact that Trevin Giles just had a little bit of extra flexibility that he knows about in his knees, and Delice was kind of a little bit confused by the whole thing, you know. But it was very strange. I think, like, there's so many, like, I'd say now, just off the top of my head, I know this would be controversial, but Dylan Dennis was probably screaming at the TV. He'd have finished that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, there's a plethora of jiu-jitsu guys would have finished that because of where he got to. Most guys wouldn't get to that.
Yeah.
Do you know, to have the 50-50 and have it low down as well enough that you're not playing that leg game. He was in complete control. Have the leg almost behind his back and then just not crank in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, it was very, very surprising. And then to sit up and take hammer fist punches was, it was all very strange.
We've seemed to have lost your camera there, Paul.
Typical.
Thank
Typical. I
God.
start talking about my belly and my camera goes, nope.
I think we leave it on the wide angle here for the rest.
I think the audience is going to be grateful for that one.
Sorry, go on.
No, but do you think that's a case of no focus being on leg locks, or do you think that was him, just his brain was cloudy, he just didn't see it at the time?
Yeah, I think there was a cloudiness there. I think there was either a gassing or a cloudiness there, because like the fact that he had the technique to get into the position. I mean, like it was 90% there.
Yeah.
Literally 90%, and he would have been walking away with his hand raised.
Yeah.
And if you can see that, it doesn't matter if your arms are gassed or what's the story. If you can see an out, if you can see a win by just doing one certain thing, you're going to take it.
It would be the equivalent of having your arm under the neck and a rear naked and someone not fighting your other arm.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's close enough description to where he was at. Yeah. Imagine having that, and this arm is just free to do whatever you want with, and you don't tie it up.
Yeah, or not putting the hand behind the head or something like that.
It was, and like even the arms being gassed out. I mean, the technique of actually holding the heel itself is not really an arm intensive. It's just a grip. If you can tie your hands together in a gable grip, that's it. The technique comes from pushing your hip into it. So I honestly don't know why he didn't finish it. And the knee bar as well. He had a very, very tight knee bar, and that wasn't going anywhere.
To be fair, Giles did roll out of that in the end.
He did, but I mean, he had so much time to do it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like there was, there was at any second.
He never extended his hips into any of them anyway.
Not at all. He just it looked like. Do you know what? If I was a conspiracy theorist, I'd say he threw the fight, but I'm not. I'm not going to say
he looked that bad.
No, it was no. He definitely looked off. He looked like he just either didn't want to be there, or didn't have the energy to be there, or didn't have the mental clarity. He was hurt or something. You gave the perfect description that he looked like he was fighting underwater. He looked disorientated after 3 minutes of the first round, I would even say. And when they did hit the ground and that leg game ensued, he certainly got clattered several times early in those exchanges. So that might be another weight cutting issue. So maybe.
But it's bananas. It's 20 pounds down, and he was a killer at 205.
Yeah.
I cannot wrap my head around it at all. He looked terrible.
But if you're trying to fit a square peg into a circular hole, dropping down that weight class,
it's mad.
Is that a factor in it as well? Like,
but I don't see the need for it. He was close to a top 15 in 205.
Yeah,
and that to me rings massive alarm bells. In that maybe mentally he wasn't there to take on someone in that top 15 of the 205 division.
Yeah, he's looking at the top 10 and thinking, I don't want any smoke with those lads.
Yeah, well, he got smoke from a 30 ranked guy at 85. So,
maybe
it
was a good call. So,
don't know where his future lies. Just touching on next week before we wrap up. Obviously, we have UFC 260. We have a lot of content going out this week. We have Matchmaker will be out on Monday. We have something else out on Tuesday. Sorry, we have a round table chat, a wrap up of the Legacy or the Cage Warriors cards on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have a new segment. We are going to have our very first top 10 for you. On Thursday, of course, we have our behind the tape for UFC 260. Friday, pro-am predictions and our live podcast. Saturday is the show, and we will be back in again this time next week.
And where you can get most of those videos that Paul just talked about is on the YouTube channel. So go ahead across to this YouTube channel. We keep saying this YouTube channel because there is another one called the MMA Opinion.
Stealing all our fucking subs.
There you go. And if it hasn't got this logo on it, guys, it's not us. And we are at the 375 now, so just 125 off that 500. It would be great to get there by the end of the month. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do. If you have already subscribed, please log into someone else's account and subscribe on their behalf.
And watch us twice.
Gonna get done by YouTube now.
So do you want to give a shout out to your Twitter channels? You're on Instagram mostly, Dave. Is it? You don't do Twitter, do you?
I don't do Facebook. I haven't done Twitter for a while because it stresses me out too much. But
I've got a load of trolls on Twitter, boy.
Do you?
You do.
Yeah. Trolling you?
I have trolls on Twitter. I don't have trolls on any other social media platform, but Twitter, people are trolling me.
Twitter is just it's a nightmare. I tried to stay away from.
I love Twitter.
Yeah.
I just don't like the trolls. But anyway, go on.
Yeah,
and to be honest, I wouldn't mind some trolls. I say, if there's anyone out there looking to troll someone, I'm your guy. Please come forward and try and troll me.
Are you looking for a girlfriend?
So Dave, where are people going to find you on Instagram? So
people can find me at Diorahan. It's an Irish name.
Oh,
You're
Jesus
not
Christ!
Get it.
No hope of anybody getting that.
No, not a hope.
Hang on, let me get it on screen.
DDEORDHAIN.
But I do hope to in the future, soon enough, we might come up with a history of various martial arts coming up at some stage. I love my history, so to combine the two would be fantastic. Also, I would like to, as well, going forward, to talk about many of the contentious issues in MMA and maybe do a few pieces on those. So if you are interested in some of the more controversial topics or the more topics that matter most, do watch this space. Oh yeah, look, there's me.
There you go, right. That's how you spell his.
And I actually spelled it right as well, which is alarming.
That's how much you spend looking at my Instagram now.
I just guessed, to be perfectly honest.
But yeah, no. So I do intend on doing a few of those in the future. So if you are interested in that kind of stuff, watch this space, and we will get those out to
you. Paul, Twitter.
PAULOD_MMA. At what I said before.
Useless.
Hold on. Have we got? Is this you? Oh, it is. Yeah. Hang on.
Paulo D. Pete.
There we go.
Jesus, that's
how many followers you got, Paul? You have 165. You're growing, boy.
Telling you, I'm getting there slowly but surely.
165. We see two medal Tim is in there. Look,
I'm the same as Dave. Twitter isn't my space, but I'm trying.
Yeah,
I've been active of late. I'm planning on being active going forward. So if you want to follow me on there, we'll have some fun and troll away, lads. Troll away.
Yeah, if you want to find me, I'm at Liam OG Griffin. Hang on now, I'll get this one up.
Liam OG Griffin. That sounds gangster, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's just because he's old.
Og means young, boy.
That's me with a load of naked fellas on my one. Look.
Jesus.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Jesus. The SPG Cork fight team up on top there, but yeah.
Beautiful.
There we go.
Actually, there's a Bellator heavyweight from Cork that wants my hide. Liam, I might need you to protect me from him.
Who's that? What's Ryan Spillane doing? You know.
I messaged him on Instagram yesterday because he was watching Drive to Survive, the Formula 1 series on Netflix, and I sent to him greatest sport in the world. And he said, "You're dead to me, Dave. That's it. That's it. I'm coming for you. You're done." He said, "Get him off the podcast." So he's probably going to come to you and say, "Get him off the podcast." So I settled for a tie. So it should be all right. Hopefully he won't come kill me.
So there you go, guys. That's been our show for the week. Hopefully you enjoyed. Sorry about the cutting in and out if you were watching live. The uploaded video shall be better. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will see you all next week.
Peace.
Peace out.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
I'm not surprised, motherfuckers. Where you at, McNuggets, you fucking piece of shit? I'm killed with all the gods. Gods recognize gods.
This is #1 bullshit.
You can't stop us at the Express. Choo-choo, motherfuckers.
I don't have much left to say other than